All right. Hey, welcome back. Hope everybody's enjoying your lunch.
That's all good. Okay.
While you get a chance to eat together, hey, how are you? Good to see you, Shauna. We have a real privilege today. We get to hear from a very successful serial entrepreneur. He's someone that has become a really great friend. I really appreciate him and his insights, and I love watching how he runs his companies. He also happens to be a very close neighbor. In fact, he's our landlord, and a super good one too. And he knows how to build team. I watch it happen as his team is together in the break room, as they do their bingo, as they pass around the potato head, right? Yes, it's just awesome. They have these great ways of helping to create great culture, which to me is one of the most important parts of leadership, and I know that many of you feel the same there. And so I'm not going to do the full intro, actually. Our Rebecca Palmer, who's over PR at RevRoad here, is going to make the introduction. So with that, let's have Kelly Walker and Rebecca Palmer come on up, and you can start the interview. Let's welcome them.
Oh. Thank you, Darren. That was a great introduction. And thank you, Kelly, for joining us. This is such a beautiful building. Do you guys like it? If you haven't been on the other side, go check it out. It's pretty awesome. So do we have anyone here from Solcius today? We have Kelly.
Well, none of them were invited, but there are some that are here.
Oh, fabulous. Well, thank you for bringing Shauna. And
the good ones happen to be working right now.
Your taskmaster. So let me tell you a little bit about Kelly. As Darren mentioned, he really is one of Utah's entrepreneurial superheroes. Back when he was a sophomore in college, he took a big leap of faith, quit his job, started a new company selling, let me get this right, it's called Pinnacle Security, and it generated security accounts for ADT. Now, his dealership became a top producer in 42 states and exceeded $200 million in annual revenue. In 2008, he and his partner sold to a private equity firm, Golden State Capital. And here's the best part. Because they had never taken on any debt, the partners got to walk away with 100% of the proceeds. You know, the next step was real estate for Kelly. After working in private equity for a few years, he became a principal in a privately held real estate firm that was Milburn & Company. And since 2006, he has co-purchased more than 20 properties, building over 6,000 units. Now, that portfolio is currently valued in excess of $1 billion. But Kelly still's not done. Next up, taking on the solar industry. He first invested with a company called Invictus Solar, but soon realized there was a major fulfillment gap in that industry. That's when Solcius was born. Now Kelly gets to partner with energetic entrepreneurs and solar panel salespeople to get solar panels installed in homes. Solcius receives the orders and does the planning, preparing, permitting, and gets the power turned on. And you know, Kelly's been CEO since 2014, is that right?
Yeah, the day we founded the company.
Oh, fabulous. Did I get all the rest of that right? Anything you want to add?
There was close.
Close, okay.
I'd love to say that we didn't take on any debt at Pinnacle, but I think I'd raised over $500 million in debt at the time.
Oh, okay.
We didn't take on any angel investors, and the founders maintained 100% of the company. So we were able to benefit from it that way.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for the clarification. So let's just kick off. Tell me about yourself as an entrepreneur. Why are you an entrepreneur?
I don't know, and I wish I could stop. In fact, my wife wasn't invited either today, and she showed up.
Welcome, thank you.
When we were setting goals for New Year's, this wasn't this year, but I think it was last year, she begged me to have a goal of just not starting any more companies that year. I failed and did that, but I don't know. I have an addiction to it. I love it. I have a passion for partnering with fellow entrepreneurs and building something bigger than ourselves. I wish that I loved to play golf all day and not do much. I tell people I married my wife for time and all eternity, but certainly not breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I have to contribute to society in some way, shape, or form. And I love business.
Well, thank you. So, you know, of the many businesses you've started, all of the jobs you've been able to give people, Well, what do you consider your biggest professional accomplishment?
Ooh, my biggest professional accomplishment. I have been very fortunate to have some great wins along the way. I'm not sure which one I would say the greatest one is. All of them had massive hardships and points where I didn't know if we were going to make it, and then some big wins. Pinnacle was great in several ways. There were things that I loved about the company and things that I despised about what I had created, thus my exit from that organization. But Solcius has been a really fun company as well. Solar is a very trying space, a very challenging space. There's been many come and go in very short order. And what we've been able to do, I think, in a challenging and ever-changing industry has been really incredible.
Oh, thank you. So, you talked about you've been able to do many things, but, how do you feel about setting goals? Is that important for entrepreneurs to do?
Yeah. My thoughts on goals have changed a lot over the years. I've failed at more goals than I've accomplished, unfortunately. And as I do a postmortem on those goals and I say, why did I fail at this? I always come up with a million ideas, but I always think it's incredible. I think it's rare to find someone that can take an incredibly complex process and make it simple. And I think it's difficult for not too many people out there are able to take a tremendous amount of data and consolidate it in a consumable format. And when I looked at goals, I was kind of the same thing. I was so spread out, looking at 100 different variables on why I failed to hit each goal. But what I've looked at recently is really, in my mind, there's only two reasons why we fail at a goal. Two. I mean, you can say sub-reasons, right? I didn't have a clear enough path. I didn't have the right people involved. I didn't post it enough on social media to get everyone behind me, which I've never been on social media, but I hear it's a big thing. All of those things, but in my mind, there's only two reasons why we fail at a goal. And as I consider goals that I have for next month, I first consider those first two reasons as to why I'm going to fail. Number one, sorry, I'm going to go off for a second.
No, go ahead.
The number one reason, or the first reason, is it's simply not attainable. Right? If I say I'm going to be the starting point guard for the Jazz next year, yeah, right. I'm old, I'm a little chubby, I'm short. It's not going to happen. So it's simply not attainable. And sometimes we set those. And I don't know of a group that sets unattainable goals more often than entrepreneurs. We are the biggest culprit of setting unattainable goals. And then number two, we didn't have a great enough conviction to our why, right? A lot of us in this room probably set a goal on New Year's that we were going to lose weight. That's the easiest goal to reflect on. And some of the times that I've set a goal and I failed, and I look back on it, I said, okay, well, was it attainable? Was the goal attainable? The answer is yes. It was an attainable goal. So why did I break? My commitment to the why wasn't great enough. I broke for that stupid Twinkie. That Twinkie was a greater power than my why to losing weight. Now that's a simple analogy, but it's true in a lot of those. And the goal that I love the most that I don't accomplish is the goal that I decide not to set because of thinking beforehand, one, is it accomplishable? And two, am I really committed enough to the why to accomplish it? One example might be that, hey, I want to do X by X date. And I say, okay, what are some things that could prohibit me from accomplishing that goal? Or what are the powers that be that are going to fight me from accomplishing that goal? It might be that, for me, unfortunately, I wish my wife wasn't here at this time, but for me, oftentimes, my goals are so ridiculously large that it requires 14-hour work days. And I used to be terrible at it. I am getting better, back off. But now I look at it and I say, okay, this is my goal. Do I really what are the powers that are going to conflict with this? And one of the powers that may conflict with it is my desire to be with my family. my desire to see sweet little Ia right here in the evenings. I say, you know what? That power is greater than the goal. I'm going to bag the goal. I'm either going to extend it, change it, or abolish it completely, but that's not something I want to do because I had the foresight to know that the powers that are going to conflict with that desire are greater than my conviction to that goal.
Yeah.
Told you I was going to go off for a second. Sorry.
No, thank you. That's great information. And, for somebody who's accomplished so much, that's really good insight. We were talking before, Kelly and I were talking before, and you talked about, one thing that entrepreneurs don't do, it has to do with the why question. What should entrepreneurs do that they don't do? What should they decide when they're setting out?
What were we talking about?
Oh, sorry to throw that on you.
Why?
We had talked about deciding.
I get
okay.
I recall. I
You got it.
apologize. So one of the saddest scenarios for me in looking at entrepreneurs, I actually have had the opportunity to work with several different entrepreneurs, and publicly, they're very successful. They've got some awesome blogs, and they're able to post things, and they wear the nice suit, and everyone believes, oh my goodness, this guy has made it. Well, most of those people I found never made it. They never did. In fact, there's a couple in the solar space that have created really neat top 3 companies in the industry, generating hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue. And yet the CEO, the founder, has nothing. They gave it all away along the way. Whether that was to angel investors, whether that was private equity, whether they got in trouble early, whether they said, no, I don't want to be a mom and pop shop. I don't want to be a small player. I want to be big immediately. Therefore, I'm just going to give it all away. And then by the time they finally arrived, what have they arrived to? They arrived to a nice press release. They didn't arrive to anything being deposited into their bank account. So my challenge to entrepreneurs is to really understand your why. Because if your why is looking good to the public eye, great, that is awesome. And everyone has their own why, and no one can dictate what that why is. But if it's to set themselves and their family up, and maybe the next generation up, you need to be really careful along the way. And it may be smarter to bootstrap it for a little while to get going.
Oh, okay. Well, and speaking of bootstrap, you told me about the starting of Pinnacle and how you started with you and your partners just really had nothing.
Yeah.
And so kind of a 2-part question. Tell us the story of how that all worked out. And then the second part is, tell us how you found the right people to do it with and how you keep finding the right people.
Well, people are definitely the key to all partnerships and businesses. I was fortunate. The story behind the foundation and the launch of Solcius, which was, I well capitalized the company before we started it, versus the foundation and the start of Pinnacle. And I've had everything in between, right? So these are the 2 extremes of the story. Solcius, I put several $1 million in on day 1 to make sure that we had the financial capacity to do meaningful revenue right out of the gate. In fact, Solcius was a very fortunate story. We generated, from the day we started the company to the 12-month, to the 1-year anniversary, we had generated $18 million in revenue. But part of that was because I was able to fund, to make sure the company was well capitalized at the beginning. Pinnacle was a different story. I was 22 years old. I had awesome partners, but unfortunately we were all young, we were all dumb, and we had no clue what we were doing. Some people say, well, why didn't you go raise capital from angel investors to be more well-funded at the beginning? Well, we were too dumb to know that was a possibility.
Oh, no way.
We show up at some basement office right next to the railroad tracks in South Provo, and we're like, well, what do we do today? Well, we don't have any money. We can't afford to hire an employee. We should probably go out and sell an alarm system. And so we did that, and then we used the profits to do it, and we continued to grow and grow and grow until we were doing over 110,000 installs in a 4-month period by the time I retired from that business. But that was the growth story. It was all organic. It was all complete naivety. We blew millions of dollars on the dumbest mistakes, but we were young, we were dumb, we were ambitious, and we were going to fight to do whatever we had to do to make it successful.
Yeah, it seems like it worked out really well.
Yeah.
In the
We
end,
had-
right?
It
All's
was a
well that
roller
ends well,
coaster, but
yeah.
it was a great organization.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Darren mentioned, seeing your team here today, and, I've gotten to know Shauna a little bit. How do you, as an entrepreneur or managing a big business, how do you find and choose the right people?
Well, choosing the right people was one of the greatest strengths of Solcius, and we continue to struggle in it every day. If I were to share some of the reasons why I believe Solcius has been such a great success, definitely I would say we were well capitalized, and second, I would say that we had the right people. People are so hard. You say you can't joke a joker. I think the easiest person to joke is the joker. That may not make sense to a lot of you, but when it comes to sales and salesmen, they can bite on a scam easier than anyone. But I've bitten on a whole bunch of interviews where I thought people were going to be all-stars, and they ended up being duds. I think the greatest part of Solcius is that, one, we were able to be well capitalized, and two, I was able to draw on all my all-stars from previous organizations. So if you look at Solcius, our CFO, I've been partners with him for over a decade in multiple businesses. Our Executive Vice President of Operations, I've been with him for over a decade in multiple businesses. Our VP of Customer Experience and Customer Care, Account Funding, people in our legal department, our accounting department, our technology department, all of these people we've been able to leverage. And we've made some wrong hires. And to know what that cost us as an organization and within those departments have been massive. And if I would have had to go through that experience in every one of my departments, it's been nice that, say, 6 out of the 10 were stable day one, and we've just had to work on those 4. But yeah, we have some incredible people at Solcius.
Oh, that's great. No, it sounds like it's not so much about finding the right people, it's when you find the right people, hold on to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing that, I'm very good friends with a phenomenal CFO who's brilliant, and he's had an incredible career, but he would be terrible with us today.
Oh, yeah.
It's understanding where they are in their career, what their desires are, and what their why is. He's arrived in life. His why is to hang out, golf, do the things that I wish I loved to do. But his why is not to go build another great organization. So understanding where they are in their career, what their desires are, and then, what they're capable of. I've also hired some incredible people that were on the brink of termination because they were so poor. And poor at what they were doing. And reality is they were just in the wrong seat. And once we moved them to the correct seat, they became an all-star within the organization. Oh,
wow, that's really inspiring. I know a lot of people probably felt like that and then met the right person, gotten the right job, and took off. So it's great that you get to do that. And I did want to say thank you for wearing RevRoad blue for us today. We really appreciate that. And I'm sure our photographers also really appreciate that.
I brought 5 shirts today. I matched them against the backlight.
Yeah, thank you so much. So next I wanted to kind of get back to something you were saying before. You mentioned I think what you said, there were millions of dollars wasted with Pinnacle.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to go into that, but I'm wondering what were some of the biggest challenges that you were able to overcome?
Well, I think unfortunately, I'm a college dropout. I only made it through a year. We hang the diploma in our house just high enough to where the kids think it's mine when it's really my wife's. And I love telling people that I went to BYU, and then they ask me when I graduated, and I say 97. 97 is when I graduated from high school, but they don't need to know that. I actually stole that line I stole that line from one of my partners that has a similar experience. What was the question?
So what challenges have you overcome?
You're going to bring it back to how I lost all this money.
If you're comfortable.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest challenges that we had is that we were not a BI shop. Our business intelligence department didn't exist, and because we were so young and naive, we weren't. I'm a big believer in only the cautious survive. I know that many entrepreneurs succeed because they're so naively optimistic that they just keep plowing forward.
Right.
And I appreciate that. And ultimately, you know, most would not call me an optimistic individual, certainly not my wife. In our organization, we seldomly clap. Ringing the bell is very short order. If you came to one of our company meetings, we don't clap. We do a snap and a clap. Let's work with me, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. And that's our celebration. That's it. It's pretty pathetic. Because what we're doing incredible is awesome. But okay, let's move on. Why am I going to fail tomorrow? We succeeded today. Why are we not going to succeed tomorrow? And I really do focus on that heavily. I want to give the snap and a clap, but I want to understand where we're failing and what opportunities we have to improve. Business is cutthroat. It's challenging, and you have to be on your toes, and you have to be able to shift quickly, especially in the solar space, where every day we partner with our competitor, meaning the utility company, whom hates us. And they're always trying to kill us and trying to maneuver and understand how we can still compete and partner with our competitor but yet dominate them in the same way, are all challenging things that we face on a daily basis. But I don't love making the decisions. As a CEO, your goal is to make as few decisions as possible and have data tell you what those decisions are. What I believe that we should focus on is focusing on understanding what input I should plug into a formula, but let the formula tell me the answer. Maybe I need to hone in on what those inputs are and maybe have a little more science to certain aspects of it. But ultimately, I want data to tell me what I need to do. When I show up in the morning and I say, what am I going to do today? And I look at my executive dashboard report, I want the dashboard report to tell me where I need to put my time and where the opportunities are for improvement. And without that data, you really are blind. So I would say, what is the biggest reason why we failed or why we lost millions of dollars in Pinnacle? I think it's because we kept doing what we were doing, oftentimes not understanding the cost ramifications of it because we didn't have the data exposed to tell us what that was. We're doing the same thing right now in Solcius. We are spending a tremendous amount of money on a servicing component that we historically haven't had the data exposed to show us how much bleeding we were doing in that department.
I see. That makes sense. That's interesting to hear you're talking about caution as an entrepreneur. Like you mentioned, there's a whole lot of positivity and I think we can culture out there among entrepreneurs. So how do people know which data to pay attention to? How does an entrepreneur pull themselves kind of back from that we can do it spirit, pressing forward at all costs, and pay attention to which data?
Yeah, and the prioritization, I think it's one of the biggest challenges, especially when you're running an organization the size of Solcius, which isn't huge, but we've got over 150, 200 employees now. Is that close, Shauna? More? Good night. Would you stop hiring so many people? A lot of people, a lot of opportunities, lots of challenges, however you want to term it. It really, when you expose all the data and you look at it, you have to, there's some that are maybe sexier, that could be more exciting, that could maybe publicly be more exciting, or some of the employees could be more excited about it. We've looked at, there's one piece that an idea that I came up with that I was so excited about that could automate this entire process, and we could re-resource maybe 10 of our employees to different functions. And it was really neat and something that was unique to the space that no one else was doing, and yet it's been on the sideline for 2 years now. And why? It's because the ROI on that, or ultimately the net margin benefit to the organization, is under a whole bunch of other projects that are really boring, that aren't exciting, but their net marginal benefit is greater than that. And so I think it's really important that we focus on, well, what are the opportunities at hand and what's the greatest ROI on those and what builds equity value in the organization. I found we have this problem within Solcius is that we have several in the organization that will do things and will focus on things that isn't adding equity value. And they're short-term problem fixes instead of real equity value. And I think that that's something that I work with the management team on, focusing on building that real equity value, which is one area where I think that Solcius has a dramatic advantage over the competition, is because we have had that focus since founding the company, and not spending our time and resources and energy on things that doesn't provide long-term equity value.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, that speaks to the experience of being a serial entrepreneur. You know, you can take the lessons that you learned maybe at Pinnacle or other places to really make Solcius do as well as it can. And kind of to transition that a little bit, what advice would you give entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs about finding the right problem to solve?
Finding the right problem to solve. Well, I think that you have to have a strong idea of where you want to be. And you've got to focus on what are the prohibiting factors that are going to stop you from getting there. I know that seems very elementary. I did graduate from elementary school, so I can at least say that. But yeah, I would say it's exposing the data, it's understanding exactly where you want to be, and make sure that you stay on course until you pivot. As I consulted for a variety of different companies, it's amazing to see the number of people that says, okay, this is our end goal, and they're spending all their time on things that aren't there. And they're like, well, we're kind of pivoting. I'm like, well, you never kind of pivot. You either pivot, whether that's an inch pivot or a yard pivot, you pivot and make that decision, or you stay firm on that goal. It's okay to entertain pivoting, but what you don't want to do is have the ultimate goal but be slightly veering off course. You always stay on course. You can change course as many times as you want, but veering off course without changing the end goal, I think, is really dangerous.
Okay. And what about, you know, somebody who wants to start a company, but, you know, they're waiting to invent the next light bulb, the next brand new innovation, and so then maybe they don't ever have that aha moment, so they don't get to be entrepreneurs, or they feel like they can't be. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, I've met several people that have a desire to be an entrepreneur that need to kill that idea and never be an entrepreneur. It's interesting because I'm so passionate about business, and I'm so passionate about forging partnerships, and I'm passionate about building something bigger than my own. But my children, I pray that none of them are entrepreneurs.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. I pray that they go to college, get a degree, and go work for someone awesome like Darren and just hold course. That's certainly what I hope. Being an entrepreneur is hard. It's brutal. Most of the time you fail. But those that do want to be an entrepreneur, I have a couple friends right now that I've been friends with for over a decade, and every time I talk to them, it's, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be an entrepreneur, I'm just looking for that idea. Well, frankly, most of the time that idea doesn't hit. I mean, you referenced Facebook. They all want to find the next Facebook. Well, reality is that most of the time being an entrepreneur isn't creating a new industry. It's not. There are very seldom does an entrepreneur create a new industry. Most of the time, they're taking a stupid spatula and making the handle longer, making the, whatever you call it, the flipper. I picked a bad example since I don't know anything about the kitchen. I've been married for how many years, hon? 17 years, and I cooked pancakes a couple times, all by myself. Make the flipper a little better, you make the grip better, and you have a better customer experience, and you market it better. That's it. Do we really need another tire store across the street here? No. But could we put one in the bus barn when they move out next year and be a successful business? Absolutely. No question. We could have 5 of them right here, and an entrepreneur could start another tire business tomorrow morning and be successful. He's got to be better. He's got to be faster. He's got to have a unique product. He's got to have some unique identifier. But that happens all the time. So people that want to be an entrepreneur, they need to jump into the game, because you can quickly burn 1 or 2 decades saying, oh, I want to do this, but I'm looking for the right idea. Don't look for the right idea. Maybe the right idea is right. But, well, I'm going to ramble here again for a second. Warren Buffett said, the basics of business is find a need and fill it. I agree with that, and maybe he's speaking very specific on finding the need. But I don't think there's necessarily, I wouldn't say that you have to find a need and fill it. I disagree with that. I think you have to find an opportunity and fill it. Maybe it's the same opportunity that many others are capitalizing on, but the opportunity happens to be at Freedom and Boulevard. It's maybe geographically specific. It may be that it's just better. For instance, Solcius. Solcius was started. I promised myself that I'd never be a CEO again. My love is to found businesses, fund the businesses, find the right entrepreneurs and the right leadership team to run it. And I've done that several times. With Solcius, we never wanted to be, so I funded a company called Invictus. And it wasn't a big investment. It was $250,000, and it was some sales guys that wanted to enter into the emerging solar market and go kill it, but they didn't want to do anything other than sell solar. And for 2 years, they gave me back my investment capital, but they never paid me 1 penny. Those suckers. Just kidding. They never paid me anything. And when I was at Golden Gate as an operating executive, they kept asking me for some of my time. And finally, when I left Golden Gate, I said, okay, I'll give you a week. And I went into it, and for a week, I really looked into the business to try and understand why they were such phenomenal sales and marketers, but they couldn't make a profit, and they couldn't scale their business. And it was all because they were reliant on someone else to engineer, design, do all the electrical work, procure all the equipment, to construct, to build, to get the PTO, to work with the utility, and get all the things done. It was a lot of work. And they couldn't find, they tried the largest solar companies in the nation. They tried the largest roofing companies in the nation. They tried mom and pop startups. And ultimately, no one could provide adequate service for them to be successful. So did I have some new incredible aha moment of, oh, we're going to do this? No. It was, we're going to just do it better than everyone else. We're going to actually fund the thing so that it can pay people and pay them on time and can procure equipment and have warehouses full of it. We're going to be able to do that. And then we're going to not hire necessarily a bunch of construction people, but we're going to hire technology people that can really drive process, business people, and fill that market need, because I believe that there's 100 others that were like, that are phenomenal at sales and marketing, but not this. So we actually flipped it. All we wanted to do was sell. When I say we, I wasn't really involved. I just provided the capital for it. And then we started Solcius, and I said, okay, we're going to do everything except sell. And trust me, these entrepreneurs weren't excited after my week-long investigation of the company when I said, okay, here's my recommendation. Throw your company in the toilet. You're too reliant on others, and if I were to advise you to do anything, it would be to go raise a few $1 million and do exactly what you've been trying to find for the last 2 years. I mean, that was the genesis of Solcius. That's how it all began. It was that one we did find a market need and fill it.
So was it the same people from Invictus that did they take your advice and come to Solcius, or was that a new team?
My partner and co-founder was the president of Invictus.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I think, I'm just looking at the clock up there, I think it's about time for some audience questions.
Okay, as long as they're not from my wife, we're good.
Does anybody have a question for Kelly? All right, well, I have some more questions for you then. So, with solar, how are you able to solve the problem of getting installations, done quickly? You told me before when we were talking that it can be about a 90-day process for a consumer to get solar on their house, from when they decide they want it to when they have it, even though the installation itself just takes 6 hours. So how are you able to solve that?
We certainly haven't solved it. We feel that our velocity and throughput would compete with the best, if not be the best in the industry. But it's really that focus. If you look at the timeline for delivering the product, if you will, by constructing it on someone's house, yeah, it can take 90 days. We pride ourselves on we hover around the 24 to 28 day time period. But we feel that there's typically a lot of focus on the installation piece, which is key. We have to have quality, we have to have the right people, we have to have the training to do it, and this thing is a 25, 30, hopefully 50-year investment in generating your own power. You want that to be sound. But when you look at the reality of going solar, you've got this potentially 90-day process. In fact, this was interesting. I'm a big believer in both culture and technology, people and technology. Our turnover in upper management at Solcius has been next to none, and we've been very grateful for the team that we have. But it was amazing. I told my entire management team in 2015 I would take them and their spouses, everyone, to Hawaii or Mexico or something, if we could get our average install time down from 117 days down to 90 days. Now I'm trying to remember the data. Maybe that was that was the whole process. So not just the installation on the roof, but PTO granted and them generating their own power. And I had awesome culture. I had awesome people that had this same-day mentality and tremendous amount of energy and desire to get there. And now we hung a pretty good-sized carrot. Hey, we'll take everyone to Mexico. And we never accomplished it. I think the closest we got was 97, 98 days. It was really poor. And so then we said, okay, well, what's stopping us from getting there? And we decided we would build and develop the technology and the automated pieces to really drive that to where now, our goal was 90, and now we're averaging in the 60-day time period. And so I really do believe that it takes both. I've also offered our technology to some of our competitors who really have struggled and said, okay, well, these are the things you're doing wrong. Let me help you increase your velocity and your throughput. And they haven't been able to do it. And it's because of people. You have to have the right people. While we have these incredible and brilliant tech guys here and developers, it can help, but it does take both the culture and the people and the mindset of that throughput and the velocity, as well as incredible systems to manage that. And in 2017, we were able to marry the two and see dramatic decreases in doing so. And then obviously that increases the customer experience, the customer satisfaction, and it decreases your costs. Every day that something takes you increases your costs. I don't want to talk price per watt to this group because it wouldn't make any sense, but for us, it's about a penny per watt per day of everything over 60 days. Well, that results in a tremendous amount of money being able to reduce that time period from 90 days down to 60 days. In both your cost and ultimately your customer experience, which increases your throughput and velocity.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. So I have one question about solar, and then I want to ask you a fun question.
Okay.
So with the solar tariffs and everything, is Solcius going to be okay? What's your outlook?
Well, even though there's some Solcius people in the room, we're probably not going to make it. I just wanted to see the response. That was a good response, by the way.
You got me.
It is a challenge. These modules are very expensive. And having a 30% tariff slapped on you overnight definitely will have an effect on our organization. I feel that, obviously I drink my own Kool-Aid, so you have to take it all with a grain of salt. But I feel that we're in a better position than most anywhere else out there because we're so financially stable that we were able to buy thousands of modules when we sensed that this might be coming.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I have no belief in Donald Trump, and I believe that he was going to do what he did. And so in October, November, and December, we were buying millions of dollars worth of equipment. So I have enough product to do hundreds, actually thousands more homes at the cost point that it was in 2017, which is a big advantage.
Wow.
And that gives me the opportunity and the time to make other adjustments to cut costs and be able to offset the ramifications of what I will have to pay, which is higher costs in product in the future. But I bought myself some time in order to do that. And we have a good reputation that we've never missed a bill, and we don't negotiate crazy for ridiculous terms. We simply pay. And so when product is available and when product does hit ports, we're often the first company that they reach out to because they know they'll be paid and paid on time.
Oh, that's awesome. That's incredible. Like, that's an amazing amount of foresight. Congratulations. But, you know, speaking of buying things, here's the fun question. You've obviously been very successful. What's the favorite thing of yours that you were able to buy that you didn't necessarily need?
Oh man, my wife could give you a list of those. So
she could come too.
I have a very hard time spending money, and all of my friends and partners will all tell you this. Like spending more than $30 on a pair of jeans is beyond me. Spending more than I can't. Vehicles. Everyone wants to know what vehicle I drive. I drive like a 2009 dented Denali out front. Anything that doesn't appreciate, I can't stand spending money on. Like, it doesn't matter what my bank account looks like. If it doesn't appreciate, I can't spend money on it. But I unfortunately do have an addiction to recreational properties with water because I love fly fishing and I love hunting. So unfortunately, the one thing I spend money on is ridiculously expensive, and I can't help myself.
Hey, follow your bliss. That's great. It's so cool that you get to do that and help other people. Like I mentioned, so many employees and other companies succeed and get to do what they love as well. Like, that's really inspiring for me. I think one last call for audience questions before we wrap up. So the question, sorry, you weren't Mike. The question is, what do you think of Elon Musk's strategy and the idea of putting solar shingles on rooftops?
I am a big fan. I love it. And I love all the things that Elon's been able to do. I'd like one day for him to hit a deadline. I swear the guy isn't an entrepreneur, he's a developer, because developers never hit deadlines. Sorry for those in the room. In fact, Darren, I think inviting me to speak today was probably one of the biggest mistakes that you've made. Where is Darren?
He's over here.
Oh, yeah, it's a massive mistake, because if you don't think, I mean, you said he always hits time, he's the best you've ever, I mean, this guy will be working for Solcius by day's end. I mean, I will figure it out. I will figure it out. But it's awesome. It's just, there's so many challenges with it, right? Same thing with the Tesla Powerwall. It's awesome. Like, the price point is awesome. Do you know how many, so that was announced in 2013. You know how many of those have been installed in the state of Utah or in America, period? Very, very few. It's just so cost prohibitive for the common man. I love it. I love the product. I love the technology. I think mass adoption is very far out. Do I love 5 foot by 3 foot square panels on a wall where it has to go around some vent and it's all hodgepodge on a roof? No, I hate it. But reality is, from a cost perspective, it's going to be very difficult for solar shingles to compete with what we offer today. And Elon, while he's made it sexier and more beautiful than anyone else has, there's multiple companies out there that sell solar shingles. I don't want to get into, I don't want to bore you to death, but the inverter and the optimizer is very difficult. If you put just a standard solar array on someone's roof and you have one panel with a blob of snow on it or shading from a tree on it, that entire array performs to the lowest producing solar array. And so it just plummets. Well, one thing that we do is we put an optimizer on every single panel. And we don't care if it needs it or not. Every panel every system that Solcius sells, and we may be one of the only companies, if not the only, in America to do that. Every single one of them has an optimizer. There could be no shading at all. We still put it on all of them so that if one panel ever goes out, we have that. And but that is complicated drastically when you go to shingles. Being able to optimize it and having high productivity out of all your panels. I love it. For new builds and new subdivisions and new roofs, it's closer to making sense. For existing roofs that already have a roof type on it, you're a long ways away from having it make financial sense to do it. In fact, most places there is no ROI. It's the only reason you would do it is because you're trying to decrease your carbon footprint and benefit future generations, but you're not doing it from a cost perspective.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, one more question.
So who or what then is coming into your space that intrigues or disturbs you?
So, no question. There's been small progression in productivity and efficiency from solar panels, and that will continue on. But I think it will continue as it has in the past. That it'll be a 3, 4, 5% increase on an annual basis, which is awesome. I love it. I'm grateful that there's smarter people than me out there to figure out how that works. I think the biggest game changer in solar will definitely be battery technology and getting off the grid, the ability to go solar without partnering with your competitor. And Solcius is one of few companies out there that does not offer a battery solution. And one of the challenges is because it's hard for me to offer something that I don't believe in. If you look at it's absolutely amazing. There's been more money invested and planned to be invested from 12 months ago to the next 24 months than in the last century combined. The investment in battery technology. And that's not being driven by solar, that's being driven by EV. And you look at the cost and the efficiency, and it's not, cost is getting reasonable, efficiency is getting reasonable, but tenure is still terrible. By the time you finally by the time you finally break even on your battery, it's gone. It's dead. And so that's why we don't have it. And trust me, every one of my sales partners wants it. Most of the customers think, love the idea of it. Well, I love the idea of it, but in practice it doesn't make sense today. But considering the investment that's being put into it today and the incredible advancements that are being made in battery technology, not on an annual basis, but now on almost a weekly, monthly basis, is incredible. And I'm really excited for the day where I say, it's time, and we will now offer this to our consumers. I don't believe that is today. I also don't believe it's 5 years from now. I believe it's coming very quickly. But for instance, my home and my cabin both have power. I love it. I get a bill for $13, I think, every month for my home. That's just my connection fee. And I get a bill for $6 every month for my cabin, and one of them used to be $400 a month. The other one used to be $250 a month. I love it. And people always ask, well, what kind of battery do you have? I don't have it, and because I don't believe in it at the moment. I'm excited to add it on in the future, but today is not that day.
Great, thank you. So it's time to wrap up, Darren? All right, thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Go off this way.
Hang on, Kelly, if you will. So we have a gift for you, and wouldn't you just love to hang out with this guy? So fun. Let's give him a snap and a clap. Ready?
Snap and a
1,
clap.
2, 3. Snap, clap.
Thank you so much, brother. Really do appreciate it. Thank you.
And can we invite your wife and daughter to come up? Did she just run out? We'd love to get you up here.
She knows there's donuts on the other side, so I thought she'd run over there.
Oh, awesome.
And she gets sick of hearing me speak. It's like, oh, it's just Dad.
As you can see, great entrepreneur, great experience, and that doesn't happen alone. We know that. We're so thrilled to be associated with you and to have the chance to be neighbors as well. Hey, come here, sweetheart. Yeah.
We've got some questions for you, young lady.
One of the things that all the people in this room want to do is they do want to succeed. And I'm glad you warned them about being an entrepreneur, so fair warning, right? And now if you proceed, then it's all your own fault. And I have one last question for you. How many people have you and your family created jobs for over the years?
Oh, man, I don't know the answer to that. It's got to be close to 10,000.
Yeah. Which in my world is one of the coolest things that you've ever done. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing and the opportunities you've created for all those families. Thank you. Let's hear it for them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You bet. Actually, sorry, what's your daughter's name again? Leah, could you help me for a minute? Well, actually, you come up here and sit right here, okay? If you'll sit right there, and then I'm going to have you choose some in just a moment. But first, we're going to have Joe come up. Joe? Joe is with Squire, and I mentioned to you his great services. He's going to share for just a few minutes about what Squire does. All of you are going to either be in a business or start a business that needs these exact services. And it's been wonderful for us. They've helped us with probably, 3 or 4 of our companies so far, and we're so grateful for that. Go ahead, Joe.
Thanks, Darren.
Joe, just so you know, I've used you guys for a decade.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah, my name's Joe Hillstead. Really grateful for the relationship we've developed with Darren and RevRoad and the RevRoad team. I'm a tax partner with Squire & Company. We're just located up the hill. We've been in business for 40 years. We're the largest CPA firm in Utah County. We're just slightly behind the national firms. We believe that we've got national firm expertise, but local firm service and attention. We've got kind of 3 major service areas. Tax, I'm a tax guy. We've got audit services, auditing of financial statements, and our advisory practice. We implement accounting systems and ERP systems for small businesses so we can scale with you. We focus on small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and we've got billion-dollar in revenue companies that we work with. And so if you have any tax or accounting needs, we'd love for you to think of us, and really appreciate this opportunity and appreciate the relationship we have with you, Darren.
Thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate it. All right. So now we have the most important person of all in our day. Okay. If you will somehow, I'll tell you what the name is, and then you can hold this and say it. All right? Okay. Say
Doug Edwards.
Doug Edwards. Will you stand so they know where you are? Okay, we're just doing our raffle. Okay, good. And then sit right here. All right, go ahead and choose one more. Okay. Oh. Say
Ahmed.
Ahmed. Where's Ahmed? Right there. Okay, thanks. Thank you. Good job. You did great. Another high five. All right, so that's it. We're going to do a tour for anyone who wants one. You'll just join Amy right back in this corner. Several of you asked if you could do that. We also, just keep in mind, we do this the first Thursday of every month, except April, because we had so many people tell us they're going to be gone on spring break. So we'll be back here in May on the 3rd. The workshop will be on finance. And looking forward to that. Can't wait to have you here. Thanks.